Hey guys, welcome back to the Good Fight Marriage podcast. I'm Josh.
And I'm Sydney.
And today we're going to be talking about our whys. Why in the world do we want to talk about porn addiction, especially as it pertains to marriage?
Yep. I've made the joke to a few friends recently because several people have reached out and they're like, oh my gosh, we're so glad you're doing this. Thanks for talking about this. And I'm like, yeah, no one ever said they wanted to be like a porn addiction influencer, which I still don't, but I think it needs to be talked about. And so that's what we're doing.
Yep. So we saw the need. The big why is we saw a need. We didn't see anyone out there doing this. And
at least the way that we are doing it, I haven't seen like a couple do it. It's always like therapists, counselors, but we have firsthand experience. And between the two of us, it's like 20 years of addiction and we've overcome it. And I guess that can, if you want to just jump into the whys, we can just segue into the first one for me, which is a big why that I came up with is that this addiction takes years off of your life. Like it wastes your life, it wastes your time, and you have no idea how much the brain actually needs to recover until you're fully out of it. And you look back and you think, oh my gosh, my thinking was so warped, and how the Bible says we need to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. That verse takes on life, like it truly comes alive. I look back after being free now and I get upset if I think about how many millions of people are still trapped in that same place when this is far behind us. And I just think, wow, where could the world go? What could God's children do if we were free from this? And so that's a big why for me.
Man, I want every one of you guys to have the relationship with your wife that God intended you to have the day that you met her, the day that you said, I do. He intended and he had a plan for your marriage, and porn has screwed it up. Period. Porn and sexual addiction has screwed up your marriage. Whether you're looking at it once a day or once a week, it's screwing with your mind and it's screwing with your marriage. And it's going to screw up your kids too, because you're not going to view your family in the same way that God would have you view your family. So having the mental clarity as the husband, not looking at porn, having the mental clarity to lead and make decisions for my family and to lead.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good reason.
For so many years, Sydney was the leader of our household.
And I'm not a good leader. Wives, we're okay. This is controversial in 2023, but I've heard it said like this, like as the wife being the helpmate, we can learn to lead from behind in a respectful, submissive way, kind of like how the Holy Spirit is so kind and like, hey honey, like what do you think about this? Or like, hey babe, like I would always ask like questions. A lot of the time I would just jump down his throat and be a horrible, tyrannical leader because I was so upset and angry. And I'm not the only one. I'm in these support groups with thousands of women, and they go crazy on these men. And the support group, we get to hear the kind of the dark side that's private, and just the schemes that women are thinking of against their husbands that they once loved. I mean, a lot of these women, I'll like check out their profile and I'll scroll through and I'll see their wedding photos. And you would never think that this sweet little bride could turn into such a monster, but that's what this does.
Man.
That'll lead to my why about objectification and body image. But
go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to finish that thought that as a wife in that state, first of all, we're not meant to lead the household like that. Yeah. And single moms, like you guys are awesome. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
You have been put in a position that God has graced you for the season that you're in, but in a traditional marriage that God has us three, a cord of three strands, him, husband, wife, we're not to be the ones that are the spiritual leaders of the household. And I know so many times, so many wives, when you're in this position, I had this question a lot too. How can I respect a man who is not even leading himself, who cannot even govern his own hands. I mean, his hands and his body are controlling him. He's given himself over to whims and to urges. How can I respect someone like that? And I empathize. I totally get that. I was in that season where I had zero respect for Josh, and it took a long time for us to work back to a place where I can look at him and think, wow, he is smart. He's gifted. He's talented. He's strong. God put him in this role for me to submit to, and I want to submit to him.
I mean, I know the obvious is true. Respect is earned, and it's not given. I mean, we know this. I know this in my corporate job, and I tell guys this, and I've been told this. Respect is earned. It's not given. With your wife, and trust is earned. It's not given. So when you break the trust, when your wife finds out you have a porn addiction, when your wife finds out you're sneaking around on her, you have an emotional affair with another woman or a man, the trust is broken. You've been lying to her, and she feels betrayed. A level of betrayal that most of us men will never feel. The betrayal is so real, and if you can just try. I know for men it's difficult. It is difficult for men to empathize.
But I think our mentor walked Josh through a scenario early in the process.
Yep.
We were like fresh into figuring this stuff out, like a few weeks where the pain was all still there. But I think some breakthrough came when Dustin explained like, hey, Josh, how would it feel if Sydney drained the bank account? So I don't know if there was more to that, but if I secretly had been draining a bank account, like all of our money, and Josh just finds out of the blue, hey, we're negative. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
And then I'm there with all the charges saying like, oh, I don't know. I just went shopping. Like, it's no big deal. Like, I mean, as the provider and as a squanderer, that I could see how that would be highly offensive. And I think men could walk that through and think like, wow, if my wife did that to me, that would really make me angry. I would feel pretty betrayed. My next two whys are objectification and sex trafficking. I mean, obviously we all know that the porn industry fuels sex trafficking, but above that, it fuels the mindset that would even get a human to do that to another human. Yeah. And that's the thing that makes me sick is, I mean, people are desperate and they'll do things for money, but how far do you have to take yourself mentally for you to be able to even begin to take advantage of a child or to view a child in a sexual way or to put a child in harm's way? There's just we all know the movie The Sound of Freedom is out right now. I think it hit like #1 in the box office on July 4th and which is great. I think awareness is awesome. I mentioned Operation Underground Railroad in the first video and not even knowing that this was all coming out. And I just think it's great. I think the timing is awesome. I think God is doing something. There's momentum in the kingdom, in the spirit. Yeah. And
we've got to shut this thing down.
Yes. That's a big why for us.
We've got to slow down this train that has just been allowed to go without hindrance for so long. Mm-hmm. And my second why was the same. But I worded it differently. I said, and I've told guys this before, porn is the gateway drug to all other sexual sin and sexual crimes. So in separate studies of serial killers, mass murderers, serial rapists, and pedophiles, child molesters, there's one common thread with those groups of people, and it's regular and sometimes, most times, heavy porn use and porn addiction. Mm-hmm. And I mean, just think about that, guys. You're engaging in something and you're addicted to something that Timothy McVeigh was addicted to, more than likely. The Unabomber, the Columbine shooters, and the Aurora, Colorado movie theater shooter, the shooter in Uvalde, Texas. Mm-hmm. The thing that nobody talks about is their mental health and the things that they were doing. We still don't have the manifesto from the shooter in Tennessee.
And if that sounds dramatic and just like, oh, you guys are off, well, I mean, that's where it starts. That's where objectification starts. You have to start dehumanizing people and removing, I mean, the intimacy of sex, and then just remove humanity altogether. Just, people are, for my use, people are, I mean, it's so common nowadays to hear somebody say, I hate people. I mean, what got them to that point? Why do you not like other human beings? I mean, you're a human being. Why hate your own species? It's just a whole heart issue. It's a philosophical mess.
Yep.
And I think that's why society has ended up where it is. And porn, like he said, is the gateway.
Yep. Yeah, I saw a guy at a burger place a few weeks ago that his shirt said, dogs yes, people no, or something like that. Basically, he's a dog lover, but he hates people. It's like, really? Have we come to this point in our society where dogs are more valuable than human beings? I mean, if you asked most people, would you kill a baby dog, a puppy? And they would say, absolutely not. That's barbaric. But we're killing millions of unborn babies, human babies, every year.
Yeah, and
taxpayer-funded abortion.
Yeah. And that's where that's a whole other why as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, porn and irresponsible sex that is not between a monogamous long-term relationship leads to decisions that people have to make, and Plan B pills. And, I mean, the whole sex industry is Plan B and fixed. Like, you got to get yourself fixed, or you, like vasectomies. It's not natural.
Right.
I mean, it's natural to procreate, and that's what reproductive organs are supposed to do. They're supposed to reproduce.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know we all know this, but there's just some huge whys, because I think Josh and I have talked about this so many times. It's like, man, why do we feel the need to discuss these things when so many people won't? And we just feel like, if I could see in the spirit, like, I feel like it's just a giant that people don't want to touch. First of all, because a lot of people aren't even aware that it's a big deal. They're not aware that their partner or their spouse is in an addiction to begin with, but they're also not aware of how it pervades every area of society. If you're a woman under the age of 60 and you wear something nice out in public, I'm sure you have felt the gaze of men as you walk around out in public. There's this.
Not this guy.
Yeah, Josh doesn't look. Apparently, he works on that. But
apparently, there's no apparently about it.
Well,
it's my joy. It's almost okay. We're gonna get off on a tangent here, guys. Try not looking at a beautiful woman who is scantily clad, or wearing yoga pants or what have you. Just try next time. Look once, realize, okay, that's a threat level. Try not looking at that woman, and you will it's almost tangible. It's almost tangible, the feeling from that person. But I feel like most women expect to be stared at.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And women are used to like that predator vibe from men out in the world. And is that directly related to porn? Maybe yes, maybe no. But I think for so many men, knowing the stats, that because we know the neural pathways in their brain are like ruts. They are like ruts when they consume dopamine levels through porn. We know that their brain looks different than a normal, healthy brain. And so to be out in public and to be looked at by a man, I mean, I've heard men share their thoughts in this area, like Jonathan Pokluda. He like would pray that he wouldn't imagine the color of a woman's underwear, that he wouldn't undress her in his mind. Like, I mean, that's just one guy's thoughts. I mean, what are guys thinking, especially with just the kind of porn that's out there? And
people think this isn't a big deal. Like, oh, and I've even had people at work say, like literally 2 weeks ago, a guy asked me point blank, totally out of nowhere, hey Josh, why when the cart girls come by when we're playing golf, the cart girls are girls who drive around in a golf cart that has alcohol and other beverages on it. And they sell to the guys playing golf, men and women playing golf. And they're called cart girls. Sometimes they're very attractive and almost always young women. So most guys stare like just
Dogs.
Yeah, they just stare at them and they talk to them, they flirt with them. They're all married men that I've been golfing with. Not all the guys that I've golfed with, obviously, because I golf with my pastor and he doesn't. But anyway, this guy asked me, he's like, Josh, why, when the cart girls come around, do you turn your head? Why do you turn your head? Can you not appreciate beauty? And I responded with, yeah, I can absolutely appreciate beauty. With one look, I can appreciate beauty. That's all that's required.
Mm-hmm.
You look once, well, I don't need to look again at that person. Because then that second look isn't just a look, guys. You know this. It's not just looking.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking thoughts about this woman. You know this because if you have a daughter and you're at a restaurant and a guy, say in his mid-40s, is looking at your daughter who's 14, okay, you know that he's not just looking at her. It's not just looking. You know he is undressing her in his mind. He's wanting more than just a look, just a glance.
Especially if he's addicted to porn.
Especially if he's addicted to porn. And by statistics, most of the men that we encounter in the world today are addicted to pornography.
Right.
So it's not just a look, guys, because if your daughter's getting stared at, it's not just looking. Okay, that guy. If you get mad at him, which you will, and you start to your blood starts to boil, imagine that, and then think next time I see a beautiful woman, I'm going to notice her, and I'm going to look somewhere else. I'm going to look at things that get me places. The other thing that helped me in this area, and I know this is kind of a tangent, a practical tangent, but another thing that helped me in this area is when Sydney told me this once. I don't know if she told me this or if she said that somebody said this.
No, I remember.
But she said, that's not yours. And so
I said, you're going to finally have breakthrough when you stop looking at another person and thinking mine.
Yeah.
Like, why look at some other 22-year-old girl and think, oh, that could be mine? I mean, it can't be. In what universe? You got married. Sorry.
And in what universe, for other reasons. Well, this is kind of degrading to women. The thing that I start to imagine, and my mentor said, everyone poops. So you can imagine that girl, just think, well, she's taken a dump in the last couple of hours, more than likely. And that'll usually quell any perverted thoughts.
I also wrote, from Objectification. Of course, most people would think of that from the porn addict standpoint, like, oh, that horrible porn addict, they're objectifying people. Well, also, if you have watched porn and if you like being objectified, I'm sorry, but you are part of the problem. And I was part of the problem at one point in society as well. I enjoyed being objectified. Therefore, I wore clothing that would have objectified me. I behaved in a way. I put myself in situations that allowed me to be objectified. And so many women, if we didn't fuel this industry, it wouldn't exist.
Yep.
It wouldn't exist. But it does, because women have holes in their heart. Any of us can have them, and I've been there before as well. And it's not condemning. I'm not condemning anyone. I know where I've been, and I know what mindset I had at the time, and it was sad and broken. So many girls, and this is a hard one, and I'm going to teach my girl differently. So in society, it's a common thought now that it is on the predator and not the victim for any events that would happen. So say you're out at a club wearing barely any clothing, you put on your sparkly skin stuff that makes your skin glow, you put on the lashes, you got the lip injections, you got the hair extensions, you got it all. You've made yourself look extremely sensual and plump and ready to be loved by a man. Like you have suited yourself up for the male gaze. It shouldn't be that woman's fault for looking that way. And I agree to a certain extent. Yes, like women are beautiful, of course. God made us that way. But there's something, I'll say this. Tina Fey wrote a prayer for her daughter. Like I read it like 15 years ago and it's so good. She says, "Lord, let her be beautiful, but not the kind of beautiful that's broken that would draw the soccer coach's eye." And that's just a little line from like a poetic prayer that I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so good. Like, let my daughter be beautiful, but not in that broken way that someone would want to take advantage of her, because people will treat you how you let them. And I'm not saying that you attract abuse into your life. I'm not saying anything like that. Please hear me when I say, like, as a strong, overcoming female who has been through some crap in life, I am not a victim. I am a victor. And I'm saying this from a standpoint of like, you can walk around with a dignity that does not accept that level of behavior from men. You can walk around, and when someone tries to hit on you, you kind of like, I don't know, like bear up. Like you don't become like this like little cutesy girl that people, even like the trad wife movement is, I think, is like sexualized. Unfortunately, trad wives are like taking advantage of it because they're enjoying the male gaze on TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff. So there's so many ways that all of this can be perverted, and it all goes back to the Bible, in that whether you know it or not, and this takes a level of self-awareness, porn addicts are like the most unself-aware people in the world. But I would also say that people who love to be objectified, women who objectify themselves, are so unaware of themselves. Like, are you not aware of the state of your heart and what you're looking for and the darkness that's inside there that's crying out for attention?
Yeah.
I mean, when I finally woke up to that, which I wasn't aware, like I said, it takes some self-awareness. But when I finally woke up to that, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing to myself? Gross. Like, why am I behaving this way? I was disgusted by some of the things. I remember I dated this guy, and he was like, he broke up with me like 3 times in a week. And I was like, why do you keep breaking up with me? And he said, because you'll keep coming back. You'll keep saying yes. And I remember that was a turning point for me, where I was like, oh my gosh, I have no self-worth. I lack self-worth. What's wrong with me? And that kind of woke me up to start strengthening my inside self instead of just my outside appearance.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of these women need to do. They need to become strong on the inside. And so a big why for me with porn is we are just fueling a femininity and a womanhood that lacks strength and dignity. And in Proverbs 31, it says she's clothed, ironically, clothed with strength and dignity.
Yeah.
And we are in a generation where women don't want to be clothed with strength or with dignity. They want to be victims. They want to be objectified, and they want to make money doing it, and they want to glorify it, and they want views, and they want attention.
Yeah.
And y'all, with my daughter, I am going to teach her that if she is trying to attract people from a broken place, she will find more brokenness.
Yeah.
But it's not wrong to be beautiful. Again, please hear me when I say this, because this is such a hard topic for women, especially those who have been abused or raped. I empathize, honey. Like, I am not here. Like, whatever you went through, that is so valid, of course. Of course. And I pray that you find healing, as I have.
Yeah. Not your fault.
Not your fault. There is a brokenness in all of us that needs mending and healing. And the Lord is so kind, and he wants to do that work in our hearts. But accepting the low standard in society and allowing ourselves to be objectified, women are setting that standard, and we have the power. Oh my gosh, could you imagine a world where women stopped taking the pictures, stopped filming the videos, stopped wearing the
twerking every 5 seconds?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Stop all the gyrations and the
Mm-hmm.
twerking and the look at me, look at me.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that it screams is daddy issues.
Mm-hmm.
And that is blood in the water for a shark
Ooh, yeah.
predator.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, we know someone in our lives, and I will not say their name, but there was a guy who was very predatorial who said, "Oh, yeah, find me a girl who's a little bit overweight with some daddy issues, and she's easy." And I remember when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe he views women that way. And it really gave me some insight to like kind of how a predator thinks. And I'll even say, like, he's divorced now. And along with the women who are putting themselves out to be objectified and fuel this industry, there's also a backside to all of this. And I want to speak from the wives' standpoint of having to watch their men basically be thrown to the wolves every day in this society where lust and sensuality is everywhere. And so therefore that leads to wives comparing themselves endlessly and struggling with body image. And that's a big why for me, in that it doesn't have to be this way. And I don't want my daughter to grow up thinking that there's no man out there that will cherish her beauty, because we think our kids are beautiful. Like, if you have kids, don't you just look at them and think, oh my goodness, what a beautiful creation of God.
Yeah.
And I don't want her heart to be crushed in the society that quickly objectifies women and girls.
Yeah.
If perfection led to healthy relationships, so say all of us wives who have porn addicted husbands, say we all just end up perfect. We have the best surgeons, best doctors, best tan, best nails, all the things that men love, best clothes, best lingerie. Does that fix our problems? Absolutely not. The Kardashians have the best surgeons in the world. Hollywood has the best access to all of that. And if you look at Hollywood, all of their relationships are, I won't say they're failures, but they're definitely not consistent with what Christians should strive for in marriage. So if you could buy a level of perfection that prevented all of this, I mean, we would see that play out in Hollywood, and it doesn't. So
no,
I don't think a wife can compete.
No, and we know people who have cheated on their wives, and their wives are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, really? Why?
Right.
Why would you do that? But they just get bored, and they're looking at porn, and the porn escalates, and it goes from just regular old heterosexual, porn to, trans porn to this kind of porn, and then it's that kind of porn before you know it, and then they're getting a prostitute, because the porn isn't enough, because it escalated to the point where porn can no longer give me the dopamine that I'm looking for. It's no longer hitting. It's the same thing with drugs. People say, well, marijuana is not a gateway drug. Every drug addict that I've ever met started with marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
So
you never
it
start
may
with
not
the
be
hard stuff.
Right. Nobody starts with, oh, let me do some heroin. I've never even smoked weed, but let me inject some heroin into my body.
The Bible is pretty blunt. Like, it talks about bestiality in the last days. How do you get to that? How do you get to that level?
We're already there. What are you talking about?
I know.
Oh,
I'm saying, but how does one get to that point?
Yeah.
It starts with probably some vanilla sex, some
right.
vanilla porn. You don't just jump to that level of a warped mind. It's a fade.
Yeah.
Oh, just a really quick one. Porn is one of the most racist industries out there, in that you can look up whatever ethnicity you want, and they can be raped, they can be molested, they could be teen, they could be whatever. It could be like slave. It could be like, it's so jacked up. That's a big why for me, is that it's just wrong. It's dehumanizing. We abhor racism in this society today, but yet porn does not reflect that.
Yep. Yeah. And I'll say my last one, and this is coming out in secular circles as well as in the Christian sphere, not as much in the Christian sphere as it is secularly. But I've heard some podcasters, Andy Frisella, Real AF, podcast, he talks about porn and masturbation being causes for lower testosterone, hormone imbalance, and erectile dysfunction being linked to excessive porn use and masturbation. So, guys, first of all, you're using this as a comfort mechanism, okay? And from a biblical perspective, if you're a Christian, the comforter that the Bible talks about, Jesus talks about him in John chapter 16, verse 7 and 8. He says, "It's better that I go so that I can send the comforter. The comforter will come." And the comforter is, the word there is helper, it's comforter, it's advocate. He, the Holy Spirit, is the one who advocates for you on your behalf to Almighty God, who is on the throne, and the Holy Spirit advocates for you. He pleads your case before the Father, in other words. And why would we settle for this fake, just ultimate counterfeit of comfort in pornography? Because every time you look at porn, it doesn't comfort you. You go to it for something that it can never give you. You go to it for something that it can never truly provide. And that comfort that you're seeking can only be found, not even in your wife. It can only be found in Christ. And by the power of the Holy Spirit, can you receive this level of comfort. And so practically and biblically, I implore you to seek biblical wisdom and counsel and find out how to, if you haven't surrendered your life to Christ, you have to do that in order to conquer this thing. You have to realize that you are powerless against this sin, and the power to overcome it is not going to come from within yourself. It's not going to come from your psyche. It's not going to come from manifesting these, saying things over and over again, mantras and New Age. There is no hope outside of Jesus for you to overcome porn addiction.
That was my same why too. That was my same last why.
Yeah.
Mine was feel the full weight of life. And like with any addict, you're running from a feeling.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, like, what hard thing are you facing? Do it sober. Whatever that hard thing is that you're facing, do it sober.
Yeah.
It's so much more efficient. Hear the hard thoughts in your head. Feel the emotions that hurt. Grieve the loss, whatever it is. Go through the thing, or go through the trauma healing that you need. What if you're just covering up this wound for years and years and years and it's never healing? That's a lifetime wasted.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we're running to something that isn't Jesus, just like you said. And I feel like we try to do that as a practice in our life with everything. Like, if sugar is becoming an issue, we're like, we're not doing sugar. Or screens, or it started like we both were addicted to porn, so we used to be really weak. Obviously, we gave into urges and temptation.
Yeah.
But now, coming away from, once you get out of porn, you realize you have power over so much in your life, and especially fitness. That's why you see like fit people. It often coincides with success or healthy mindset, because if you can command your body to do what you want it to do, you have a running head start on so many people. And because so many people are giving into just daily urges, daily whims. And like tonight, Josh took the TV down in our living room, which was like, oh my gosh, like that's kind of radical. But we don't want our 4-year-old crying about the TV. And she doesn't even get that much screen time to begin with. But it's like, hey, we're going to live a lifestyle of sober-mindedness, because it says to in the Bible, first of all.
Yeah.
And it's so good for us.
Yeah. Be sober-minded always.
Always. It's grueling, y'all, to be sober-minded always. Ugh.
Yeah.
That's annoying. Honestly,
Well,
it's hard living a life like this, to be
yeah.
so aware and so having to work through every issue that you have, and to be so self-aware. Not running to money, not running to shopping, not running to all these dopamine hits. I mean, sometimes if we're honest, some of us are as weak as like, oh no, I didn't get my coffee this morning. It's like, hello, Christian. We don't want to just be blown over. And so, am I harsh?
No.
Okay.
No, I was just looking up a scripture
Okay.
that goes along that same thought.
Yeah, it's just running away from idol worship. God says,
Yeah.
have no other gods before me.
Yeah. And 1 Peter 1:16, of course, it's 1 Peter 1:16 is quoting Leviticus, where God says, "Be holy, for I am holy, as I am holy, because I am holy." Different translations say different things, but basically the statement is, "Be holy," and holy there means set apart. So quit doing the thing that 50% of men or 70% of men are doing. We don't know the statistic because nobody wants to fess up to it. Quit doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. Quit eating the same crap that everybody else is eating. Quit consuming the same garbage on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and Netflix and
or spending
and
the same
Amazon
money on the trending
right.
products. It's like, take a step back. And it's not just to be unique and different. It's to say, Lord, I want to steward my life for you. What would that look like for me? And if it's buying a coffee, or if it's watching a movie with your family, fine. That's fine. We're not trying to be that intense.
Yeah.
But porn addiction requires some intensity.
Yeah. And I don't want to sound too negative. So in the same way, I could say it this way. So instead of saying, quit doing the thing that everybody else is doing, quit, spending money on the things that everybody else is spending money on, quit eating all the things that people are eating, quit consuming all the trash on the internet that everyone else is consuming.
Yeah.
I could say, start doing things that no one else is doing. And in your marriage, start doing something that no one else is doing. Yeah. Here's one: date night. Everybody says this. And the healthy marriages that we know, they always say date night. Are you guys doing a date night? No. We quit dating when we got married, right? Wrong. You have to keep this fire that I've talked about in another episode. If you haven't watched it, it's our second episode. Go watch it. I talk about the fire of the marriage bed and the fire of the intimacy in the marriage. You have to keep those embers going, and the way that you do that is through intentionality. You have to be intentional with the fire of your marriage, the fire of the intimacy within your marriage, and you can't let the embers go out. And there's so many. It's basically more positive interaction than negative. If you can just do that, and I know that's hard. I know, trust me. Sydney and I, today, we probably had an equal number of negative interactions to positive interactions.
I'm PMSing.
Well, and that's,
I'm just having some tough mindset things like lately.
But we're going to be real. That's one thing we're going to do. So don't think that we've got all of our stuff together, because we don't. Today was a rough day. Our daughter was, I don't know if she's sick or what, but man, she was just lots of words to describe today with her.
Overstimulating.
Yeah, she was just a lot. She really required a lot of attention, and it just, she went down hard tonight, that's for sure.
Yeah, she was sleepy.
Which was good. But anyway, do the things that nobody else is doing. Do date night. Be intentional with your wife. Tell the truth.
Dig and dig.
Yeah.
Ask. There's a
dig and tell the truth. Those two things go together. Wives, you need to dig into your husband's life. He does not want to talk. Okay? I can tell you this from a husband's perspective. He doesn't want to talk, especially if he's in sales or any type of communication heavy job. He's doing that 40 to 60 hours a week. He's talking, he's communicating, he's brainstorming with his team and
Right.
you know
He's in
doing
work
he's
mode.
in work mode, and he comes home and the last thing he wants to do is have a meeting, which is basically what you're asking him to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to gear him up, and you are his helpmate. So help him help you.
Yeah.
Okay? Don't expect him to just want to sit there and have a conversation. Oh, how was your day? Oh, my day was great. I did this and you did that and did. That's not going to happen. You have to push. You have to put a little bit of effort, but if you put a little bit of effort, you will get something in return.
Right. Like marriage isn't 50-50.
No.
It's very
100,
much like
100.
Well, and sometimes someone's like at 70, or sometimes he's at a 20 and I'm at an 80, or I'm at a 10 and he's at a
100.
Yeah. But it's like some we're not always, sometimes I don't even always have 100 to give, and neither do you. And we're like, hey, I am struggling. Like
but
today,
what I'm saying
I was
is
struggling.
willingness. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have to be 100% willing to put some amount of effort into this thing.
Oh, yeah. Like, yeah. And
I'm not saying you have to
won't
put
always-
100% of your effort into the marriage. That's not going to happen.
No.
Yeah.
In the support group, I'm late to the like structured healing from porn addiction, in that Josh and I kind of just winged it. Like we ran for help and God gave us help and we prayed and things worked out over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But now people are learning more about this, and now people like say, oh, well, if you find out he needs to disclose, get a sex addiction therapist or get someone involved in your life. And there's like steps that you can follow depending on what works for you. We say, hopefully you're going to biblical counsel, obviously. But a lot of women are talking about how like this is super helpful in their marriage, not just like the porn addiction symptom healing. And they talk about going through FANOS, FANOS, which is, it's a check-in that you can do weekly or daily. I don't know, depending on the severity. But I feel like Josh and I already naturally do this, which is cool to me, that this is shown to have really positive effects in marriages. And FANO stands for feelings. So you share an emotion that you had that day, which we share our emotions all the time.
Yeah. I don't know any of this, so I'm hearing this for the first time.
Yeah. And then
I'm learning.
affirmations and appreciations. I feel like we affirm and appreciate each other daily, at least. You have to verbalize these things, people. You can't just think them. And
Right.
we used to have that problem. We would keep a lot of things like, oh man, like I remember I would think that Josh looked attractive or something someday, or I would like his hair and I wouldn't say it out loud.
Yeah.
I would think it and I would never tell him. And I'm like, why don't I say that stuff?
Jimmy Evans says this. He says, never withhold a compliment from your spouse. That's what I'm talking about with positive versus negative interaction. Mm-hmm. You have to, every time you think a positive thought about your spouse, like, hello, you need to make that words in the atmosphere. Speak life to your spouse. Don't just think it.
Feelings, affirmations, or appreciations, needs. Tell your partner something that you need from them, which these are so obvious, you guys, but how many marriages are not sharing these things? Like, my goodness. And then ownership, something that you've done wrong or something that you need to take ownership of. I think that would be so healthy for so many marriages, even if it's just dumb. Like, sorry, I got snappy because I had to take out the trash, or just something dumb, but take ownership for it. It's humility, and that's good. That is so good for a marriage.
Yeah.
And then struggles and sobriety. So actually just talking about the hard thing talk about the porn addiction, talk about where they're at. Like, hey, how's the sobriety going? Which I hate those questions, y'all. I don't like them either. But I'd say that was one of the biggest things that moved us forward.
I came across this, and I just think it's funny. Some of the investigations showed, this is PubMed Central. Some of the investigations showed that pornography had some positive or neutral effects on adolescents' sexual practice. For example, pornography was found to be a resource to provide information about the human body.
Right. It's sex education. People love to say.
To increase the sense of sexual competence. And to decrease sexual shame. This is the part that got me. I was just like, it's like those medication commercials where it says, acid
may cause death.
Right. All the one thing that it might help, it might cause 60 other things. So here goes. You ready? On the other hand, there are also studies suggesting its negative effects. Several publications showed that increased pornography exposure was associated with earlier and quicker onset of sexual activity, more permissive attitude to casual sex, worse mental health, higher likelihood to risky sexual behaviors, and more acceptance of sexual violence. Moreover, a recent study revealed that problematic pornography user displayed a similar neural response as a drug addict displayed. I'm going to read that again. Moreover, a recent study revealed that problematic pornography users displayed a similar neural response as drug addicts displayed.
Right.
So the human brain, if you've seen the picture, I think we talked about this maybe in the last
Mike
podcast.
Janung showed us a picture.
Yeah, Mike Janung with Blazing Grace Radio, which we're going to be on Blazing Grace Radio this Thursday.
Yes.
I don't know when the episodes will actually air, but if you could say a little prayer for us.
Go follow Mike Janung at Blazing Grace.
Yep.
He's a wealth of knowledge.
Stay tuned for more of our story and what's helped us, and a lot of things that we've tried that did work and didn't work, and we want to talk more about practical ways that you, the man, and you, the wife, can attack this porn addiction in your marriage.
All right, guys, thanks so much for watching or listening wherever you are consuming this content. And you can follow us on all social media platforms. We are everywhere, I think, except for Instagram Threads, which just started, but I'm going to try to get on there too. And a few of you guys have sent me some messages already, and I hear you. I hear the hard stories of your guys' life, and we do the best that we can to help in whatever way that we can, or give you resources.
So keep fighting.
Keep hoping.
And fight the good fight. We'll see you next time.